You want to be known not only for how you talk and how your demeanor and what your expertise is, but also how you dress, how you project yourself.
Welcome back, Strategic Selling Group. All my followers, great to have you again, and it's great to have Jayton with me again. Remember, Jayton is the CEO and what do you call you?
Creative
director for Montagio, which is a tailor for men, and they're much more than a tailor, I can tell you, and they made me look reasonably good in suits. So welcome back, Jayton.
Thank you, John. Good to be here again.
What I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I talk a lot about personal branding, particularly for sales professionals and sales leaders, etc., because I think it's really important. But most of my emphasis these days is on the digital world and how you build a brand in the digital world. And I just assume people know about the physical branding they need to go through. But of course, we all need advice in that area. So I thought, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
Personal branding from a physical point of view. Can you tell us what you think
Sure.
we should be thinking about?
Sure. So one of the biggest things that people need to think about, especially if you're a public figure or if you're well known in your industry, you're a domain expert, you want to be known not only for how you talk and how your demeanor and what your expertise is, but also how you dress, how you project yourself. And I think a really classic or great example is Steve Jobs. The way
It was, wasn't he?
he was really good.
The
Because
black turtleneck, the dark, the sneakers
and blue jeans, basically he had the same look everywhere he went. I don't know how many of those he had in his wardrobe, but I'm sure he had one for every day of the year.
But it was a real brand, wasn't it? We all knew brand. Steve Jobs and what he looked like and how he projected.
That's right. He projected himself as simple yet creative, and that aligned very well with his brand Apple as well, which is also can be known as a simple, easy to use sort of
and creative,
tech, but very creative. Yeah. So that was great how he established his personal brand that way. But having said that, that doesn't mean you have to do the same as what he did, which is dress the same everywhere. You can have a certain theme to the way that you dress and present yourself in public.
Well, as we talked last time, you've got to think about your audience, don't you?
That's right.
Your customers, the customer base, the audience, whatever you want to call that. But if you're selling to bankers or insurance companies or legal companies, etc., they all dress in a certain way.
Yes.
The last thing you want to do is probably, in most instances, turn up in a turtleneck and jeans.
That's right. That's right. It's how you. Are you dressing to adapt to your customers or your target market, or are you dressing to create a personal brand? There's two aspects to it. Now, if you look at Steve Jobs, he wasn't necessarily dressing to, cater to a particular type of target market. I think he was just, that was the brand he created for himself because he was a public figure.
Well, you did say simple and creative,
That's
and
right.
that was the Apple thing that they were putting forward.
Yeah.
So, and the people that were buying from that brand projected well.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I was a banker and I was going to use an iPad, I could understand the brand through Steve Jobs and the way he dressed. So I think that made sense.
Yeah, it still made sense. Exactly.
There's a lot of people raising the question about ties these days. Ties are less and less used or worn,
That's right.
and yet for a lot of people they say it's really important particularly if you're selling to a professional environment, that a tie should be used. What's your view on that?
I think again it comes down to how you adapt to your audience and what kind of brand. It also comes into what kind of brand image you're trying to project for yourself. And it should be aligned to some degree through no matter what who you're presenting to. So for example, again, if you're trying to project that more successful upmarket type of look, and that give that impression to people as your brand, then yes, wear the tie and always wear the tie.
And a similar tie?
It can be. You can change it around,
But
similar
it's a serious question because
Similar
I've
theme,
seen a lot of people that always wear the red tie, right?
Well,
because that's my brand.
Let's take Donald Trump, for example.
Good example, or bad example, as the case may be.
Good or bad. It's always a plain tie. It's either bright red or it's a bright blue.
Right.
That's pretty much all the variation. And his suit's always dark, whether it's black or midnight navy. Shirt's always white. So It doesn't really stray from that from those colours and those sort of that sort of look.
And do you think that works for Donald Trump?
I guess it works for him, but look, what people think of him is all based on how he behaves. But at the end of the day, he has established that this is how I dress.
This is my brand.
This is my brand.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's an interesting question. I'm sort of all the time question whether I should be putting a tie on or not, but I think what you're leading to is you need a consistent brand.
Yes.
And a lot of people like to be very different. Well, they dress one day to the next day to the next day, and you're saying maybe that's not the right thing to do.
No. At least in your public-facing, life, you should have that consistency so that people remember you. Oh, yeah, that guy, that was the guy who wore that pinstripe suit, and he always wears that pinstripe suit. It looks a little bit like the mafia or whatever it might be, but at least they remember you for that. And that's what branding is all about, how they remember you,
Right.
how they view you as well.
So this is an interesting question for the ladies, because they want to project something quite different, a lot of them, every time. But when you're in business and you're doing business day in, day out, you're saying that may not be the right strategy.
Yeah, take Gail Kelly, for example. Great example, Australian businesswoman, CEO of major banks. So she projects a very powerful image and very intelligent image as well. So she's, the way she dresses, yes, it may not be the exact same suit and the exact same
Colour
blouse
or whatever.
Colour, but it's
the
always
same look and feel, wasn't it?
It's got that professional, same look and feel, exactly. It's consistent. So, and that's how she, has branded herself as powerful, as intelligent woman who, has reached the heights of success. So.
Okay, so good lessons for me. I'm not sure about the tie versus the no tie, but I've certainly migrated to no tie. I was brought up in the IBM world with dark blue suit, white shirt, dark tie.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to be able to down dress a little bit from that and change the image a little bit.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that that's not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
It's what you need to project for your particular type of target audience.
That's right.
But you need to be consistent with it.
Consistency is important.
So don't wear jeans one day and
No.
a top suit the next day.
Exactly.
Okay. Great advice. I really appreciate your time and your insight. Hopefully that was a little bit different and creates some thoughts for our sales audience out there. Thank you.
Thank you, John.